This is Conversations at the Well, a monthly podcast that invites you to listen to ideas and stories that will refresh and challenge. It doesn't matter what state you are in. When you come to the well, you will always leave inspired and renewed. Let's listen to today's conversation, hosted by Bishop Roy.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Conversations at the Well. Let me tell you something. Each time I have a conversation, I think this is the best conversation I've ever had. And then I happen to meet someone else. And today, I am going to have a wonderful conversation with Jasford Gabriel. Jasford Gabriel is a sincere Christian, a committed husband and a father, and a national figure. And it is my joy to welcome him to Conversation at the Well. And I promise you that the waters will flow at the well today. My brother Jasford, how are you?
I'm giving God thanks, Bishop. It's an absolute delight to be sharing these moments with you and Conversations at the Well. So the privilege is all mine. I look forward.
Well, praise God. Thank you. Thank you for consenting to come to chat with me. Jasper, you're often described as a man with humble beginnings. Can you just unpack that for us and share with us a bit about your early days, where you grew up, schools you attended, who your parents are, that kind of thing?
Very interested. I actually like to talk about my childhood days because it continues to be a source of inspiration for me. And I'm sure might be for others who are listening as well.
Yes.
But born in a place called Peckham, many persons not even know that place, but it's in northwest Clarendon in the hills there.
And it's on the map. It's on the map.
No, you wouldn't find it on the map.
I wouldn't find it on the map. Okay.
Yeah, it's about 30 minutes from Squall. It's headed towards Brownstown, but turning right at Alston and going down there. But so many memories coming from my childhood. I actually have 8 brothers.
Wow, big
family. And to put things in perspective, I mean, didn't have any sisters, so that's another side of the conversation in terms of the fights and the struggles and so on.
Yes.
But neither of my parents, mother nor father, had the opportunity to go to get a quality education. My mother went to primary school. That's the highest. My father didn't have that opportunity. And to say that we grew up in humble circumstances is an understatement. I mean, Peckham is a poor community, and Bishop, the people in the community called us poor.
so you were like P.O.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I just imagine 6 of us going to school at the same time. Parents not having a stable job, housewife and working on the farm. And so in many instances, it was a case of us having to rotate days to go to school, working on the farm sometimes, to help generate income so that we could go the next day, the sort of thing. And, just sharing whatever was provided among all of us. There's a joke we were sharing the other day that, boy, whenever mom was in the kitchen to share, we used to go by the kitchen side just to make sure we hear our names called, because apart from all of us brothers that were there, sometimes others were there, and then the names would be called.
Wow.
So we had to kind of give a reminder, if you didn't hear your name. And then immediately upon receiving our meals, we would make sure we eat the meat and the dumpling first, because once visitors come, our parents would call back for the plate. And the first thing that would go would be the meat and the dumpling. So we made sure we take care of that. But I mean, was really trying circumstances. Went to Kilsit Primary in Grantham, which is a neighboring community to Peckham. I had to just big up Kilsit Primary, especially during my year of presidency. I'm still working on some things for Kilsit Primary.
Okay.
And then, went to Edwin Allen High School. At the time, it was Frankfield Comprehensive High School. The transitioning took place while I was there with the new name. For many years going to Kilsit Primary, walked through the hills, well, all the years, barefooted through the shortcuts in groups and so on. You know, and it was a real struggle as well, starting high school, you know, and just not able to meet the daily obligations of lunch and transportation and the learning material and everything. But God has been absolutely gracious. Every time I talk about this, you know, I feel that special credit must go to my mom, especially. She never stopped praying. She never stopped trusting God. It was later on that my father actually came on in the faith, you know, but from day one, you know, when we were sleeping in the nights, we could hear our mom praying us out of poverty, praying blessings over our lives, and praying for a new day to dawn and for circumstances to change, you know. And so I still look back on those days, you know, with a lot of joy despite the struggles.
Well, God clearly answered her prayers. And I mean, did you ever dream that you would break out of that, you know, chain of poverty?
Yes, you know, especially through my mom, I learned to develop strong faith in God. She insisted that we go to Sunday school from the beginning. We never liked Sunday school. Church to us was very boring at the time. Church services were long, like all after 2, and whether your belly was hurting or they would say, sit down. And so, but we learned so many things through that tradition. Sunday school, the prayer meetings, the crusades, the going out in the communities, you know, and somehow we saw that, you know, through the engagement with the word and that kind of a philosophy, because there were others around us who never showed any interest in church, you know, and sometimes we wish we could have that kind of freedom as well, to be hanging out on the street corners, playing games, doing a little gambling, hustling, but we had to follow the strict regiments of education, church, and the longer that went on, the more we realized that this is education is the way out of poverty, and especially when you're able to have a godly attitude to go with that. And so that to me was a strong source of confidence and faith, you know, that I'm going to get through this.
Awesome. And I mean, the mix that you just mentioned, Jasford, is a mix that perhaps can become a model for many Jamaicans, you know, strong family life with strong Christian values and a strong Christian church regimen with hard work and education. I mean, what a formula for breaking the poverty chain.
Exactly. And you look at what's happening across our country today, and we can tell that these are some of the necessary ingredients, you know, if we are going to be able to move our nation and our people to a more desirable place. You know, and if I just put a wrap on that quickly, I remember leaving Edwin Allen High School, you know, and throughout my school life, primary and high school, there have always been teachers that just find favor with me. I didn't know why, but they say, come here, boy, I like your attitude.
Yes.
I like behavior, you know, and so sometimes they would either help you with lunch money, transportation, you know, or find out how you're getting on with your schoolwork. I remember leaving Edwin Allen High School, and it was at the time I was to get into college, and I remember it was $550. I'll never forget it, to start Bethlehem Teachers College.
Yes.
And my parents just could not find it. You know, I saw them having meetings upon meetings as the time drew close, and it kind of brought tears to my eyes, because, you know, but beyond that, it gave a sense of inspiration to say this has to work, because there has to be a better day. A good Samaritan in the community learned of what was happening, you know, and came to my rescue, and that started that journey there.
Well, good. We thank God for good neighbors.
Definitely.
Yes, and just at what point you recognize that the field of education would be that field that you would travel as you seek to carve out a career path for yourself?
Well, Bishop, I want to tell you, I didn't read. It's a good question, because throughout my school life and even while I was growing up, I kept hearing that I was going to be a pastor, believe it or not, because one of my favorite pastimes was just to preach, you know, going to primary school, and use that. I would be in the kitchen under the cellar, preach to everything, and even the people in the community. It was a foregone conclusion that I would have been a preacher. You know,
we still feel the same way, that somehow down the road you're going to respond to that call. I don't know.
You mean in this life?
Yes, in this life.
Yeah, but I remember remember at Edwin Island High School, as I approach finishing my CXC grade 11 subjects, and still not so sure what I wanted to do. I'll never forget one of my past teachers. I had to make reference to her when I gave my inaugural speech for presidency of the JTA, because she helped me so much along the journey. And I remember her sitting me down and trying to pick my brain in terms of the options that I have in life, you know, and trying to find the best pathway for me, you know, and she would have been teaching me for several years. That's Edna McLean. In fact, one of her sisters worship at Man of New Testament Church.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I have just wonderful memories of her. You know, and she actually introduced the idea of teaching to me, although I wasn't necessarily excited about it. But then I saw that it would also be a pathway to other kinds of careers. And she introduced me to Bethlehem Teachers College, because that's where she attended as well. And I eventually bought into the idea, applied, got through to Bethlehem Teachers College. While going through the program, I realized this is something that I think I would actually like. I have a passion for imparting, and I love to see people being engaged and learning and being more productive. And so, you know, it's a journey that up to this point, I have not regretted at all, because it provides various pathways and opportunities for ministry as well.
Certainly. And that passion from the early days, and your own hard work in terms of training and your labor of love in the classroom, all have come together to put you in a very highly envied position at the Manchester High School, the home of champions. You are now the esteemed principal of that institution, and it's one of those places that, you know, everybody wants to go to. What makes Manchester High School, Jasford, among the most sought after high schools in the nation?
I'm sure you would know as though that uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. So although you mention it as envy, that I'm sure you can testify to that.
Yes, indeed.
But Bishop, it's interesting you asked that. I was reflecting just the other day. My entire life has been just nothing short of a miracle in terms of how, you know, God has favored me. And I worry about no challenge that I face, because I know, you know, based on the presence of the Lord with me and the assurance I have. Before I speak about what makes Manchester what it is, just to say, you know, I testify about how I actually ascended to that position. I was still below the age of 40. I was never a vice principal at the school. I only acted as vice principal for a short period of time. And it's a school that so many qualified and esteemed persons applied for, you know, and somehow people in the community just found favor. I remember at my church at 18 Knowles Road, one of the officers just laid hands on me one day and told me to step up. He didn't even know that I was contemplating applying for this position. And he said that, you know, the Lord has a promotion for me. And then another sister came up to me in the church and said, the Lord said to tell you he has a promotion for you. Be not fearful. When it comes, you must take it in Jesus' name. Because there were a lot of things going through my mind at the time, not least among which would have been the fact that somebody was there that would have acted as principal several times and would have been on the periphery of retirement, and it would have been sort of ideal and smooth for that person. But I remember persons kind of just say, well, just apply and give yourself a chance. The decision is not yours to make. I prayed about it, applied, and got the position. You know, and it was quite rocky at the beginning with that transition, you know, but the Lord stood with me and gave me strength. Manchester is really a fantastic institution. I think it is highly favored and blessed by God. Manchester High School started from way back 1855. That's a long time. It's one of the oldest institutions, and not only old, but a traditional high school. You know, and if you look on the motto of the school is a Latin phrase, sic luceat lux. Let your light so shine. That comes straight out of scripture, Matthew 5, verse 16. So the first thing is that the institution is built upon godly principles. and part of my responsibility, and I'm very acutely aware of that, is to ensure that I continue to expand on such principles, embrace that, and be bold about imparting that to all who pass through the doors. What distinguishes Manchester High School in a big way, though, Bishop, I think, is the holistic nature of what we do. Obviously, it's a huge melting pot. It's a large institution with almost 2,000 students. When students enter into grade 7, they come from the private school, they come from the public school. You have in excess of 300 students coming in at that entry level. But one of the things that we do first is just to introduce them to our culture, the godly principles, the philosophy. And of course, we offer several co-curricular activities in excess of 35 clubs and societies and sporting disciplines. And I think it's very smart that that was done initially, and we kept expanding on that, because you look at what's happening globally now. Nobody's asking for just academic subjects. They are asking you, what else are you bringing? They are looking for community involvement. They are looking for clubs and societies. We get more scholarships for sports than academic scholarships. It's one of the anomalies. You have students that get several ones at CSEC and CAPE, but it's so commonplace now that it's still hard to get scholarships. But then you have a student that goes to boys or girls champs and run a fast time and win 100, or a cricket or a football, and the scouts actually come and ask and recruit, and so you find that we are always in demand, because anything you mention, it's offered at Manchester High School. So it's not by chance that we would have been national champions in, like, 2-time champions in boys and girls champs. So not many people know that people like Nesta Carter, Sherry Ann Brooks, Sharon Simpson, Elaine Thompson, the the fastest woman on earth now, Omar McLeod, Natalia Gould, all of these are students of Manchester High School. We have been champions in cricket, basketball, netball, you name it. We would have been there. Cadets, we would have been national champions in that. And so we don't just participate. We have a thing at Manchester. We are in it to win it, and so it's highly competitive. At the core of what we do, though, is academics, and so we expend a lot of time and energy and resources around that. First, to make sure we recruit the best quality educators, and also to have the necessary intervention programs so that our students can benefit to the maximum. And so our students actually do very well. And if you look on, the National Education Inspectorate ratings and so on, it will testify to that. And another thing that why Manchester High School is so highly sought after is that we actually accept anybody, literally. Well, students who are placed there on the PEP exam generally are around the 90s. I have no fear about taking a student who is 30% or 20. I just believe that's a discussion maybe for another point, but I spoke a lot.
That's going against the grain, because there are many educators and educational administrators who feel that if you get the top ones, you'll become a top school.
Yeah, but that's a conversation, because I said it in presidency, it's an apartheid kind of system.
Yes.
Because the majority of our students are given little or no chance of succeeding in life. I remember calling a school in Kingston once before presidency to seek transfer for a child into that institution. The child had a 91 average. At the time, it was GSAT. And I reasoned with the principal. The principal said, just for telling the truth, the average low.
At 91.
91. I just goes to show the kind of tradition, the extent to which many of us will go to protect the tradition and to ensure that in terms of our reporting and the statistics that is protected. But then we are talking about lives, that many people that just need an opportunity. Some of the success stories of which I spoke, even Natalia Gould and Elaine and so on, these are persons that were recruited into the school, and we have students who have come in at a low level that end up outperforming. And so one of the great things and what I love about our culture, and certainly I seek to perpetuate that, is to give an opportunity to as many people as possible. And a lot of that is because of my own upbringing. And if it was the case that persons had invested in my life and I were given opportunities, I could not have been where I am today. So those are a few of the things, that made Manchester High School, just a great place to be and to learn.
Of course. So the name Home of Champions is not just an empty title. In fact, you add value to people's lives and you allow ordinary people to become champions, and it's commendable. And the way you're leading. Tell me, Jasford, as principal for this large institution where expectations are very high, what are tell me two of the burdens, or if you prefer, responsibilities that you carry as leader of the institution that you cannot delegate. These are it's just on you.
Yeah, the first one is quite simple, and from beginning, I realized that, and it's what I call the spiritual imperatives.
Mm,
Um, just to make sure, that I constantly promote godliness and be bold about it, and to
yes.
get others to buy into it, because the circumstances and situations that confront us in and of our own self and strength, we are not just able to do that. It's not something that you'll see on the curriculum or something that stakeholders will discuss and talk about. It's something that in my own private space, as I get in touch with myself,
Yes.
and look at what God has called me to do, and the realities of what is present in the landscape, you know, it's not something that I can delegate to somebody to say, look here, I want you raise the spiritual content in the school
Yes.
for me. I believe I'm called as a leader to make sure that, despite controversies about religion sometimes, and even Christianity and the
Mhm.
relevance and to what extent, how far this must go in school, the fact of the matter is I see it as very important and part of my own kind of responsibility and philosophy to make sure I encourage that kind of intervention and
Of
support
course.
spiritually, because it makes a huge difference. The other thing is, one of them I alluded to earlier,
Mhm.
is to also open opportunities to the less fortunate and those who are really in need, of intervention. Some of my happiest moments at graduation, and I say it openly, are not the students that got 90s and came in the school. Many of those and hundreds, many of those even without teachers would have still excelled, even
Yes.
though they added value to their lives, the teachers. But when a boy whose mother sat with him at the office for a whole day and beg a space, and we say we just don't have, but the boy doesn't have the fare to leave from, maybe George's Valley to go all the way down to St. Elizabeth. And the score was low, like 30%, and you do an interview and everybody say he can't make it. But you can talk with everybody and say, this is Manchester, there's a tradition, but we are here to provide opportunities. Let's try with this
Of
boy.
course. Mm.
And you see him marching up at graduation, not only in the lowest category, but maybe in one of the top two or three.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
it's significant. And then moving on to take their space in life, and to become leaders in the society. And so I feel I have a responsibility, not just to be locked in a particular kind of philosophy and tradition that is supported by the philosophy across the education system in the country in terms of the tiered system that we have,
Mhm.
but to see every life as a life that is in need of intervention and that has great possibilities. And so that's something that I, as leader, feel I have to make sure I communicate. I do by example and point to the success stories. And even if it means that our ranking may not be so where it used to be, the fact is we are changing lives, for the
Mm.
better. That's what matters.
We're talking with Jasford Gabriel, who is an outstanding educator and leader. Who, just listening to him, you are clear that he believes that the lives of students and the future of the students way higher than even the reputation of the school. So
Correct.
and we want to celebrate that, Jasford. Jasford, you served as president of one of the most powerful trade unions in the country, the Jamaica Teachers Association. I mean, I know we could have just a whole interview on that experience alone
Yeah.
and how you got there. But tell me one of the big challenges that you faced, and maybe one big achievement that you want to invite us to celebrate with you on.
All right. Big challenge. Kind of apathy across the teaching profession, um, on account of mainly low wages and
Mhm.
working conditions. And so every year the attrition rate in teaching increases. Teachers are finding various places across the world to apply their trades. And so we continue to lose some of our best quality teachers. It was really a great challenge for me during presidency, because you may try to motivate and inspire, but at the end of the day, it comes back to some of the bread and butter issues in terms of persons, who desire to be here to continue to contribute, but the reality is they still need somewhere to live and to live a little more comfortably. And so you try to find a way in which you can improve these conditions in the short term, but obviously it won't happen in the short term. You can only lay the foundation, break some grounds, continue some principles that we would have been trying to deal with through the years. But so that to me was a real challenge. We did make some headway as far as that is concerned, but it continues to be a great challenge.
Yes.
We continue to lose our best minds, and especially in some critical areas, like in the STEM areas, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and so on. And that's where the world is at right now. A country that is going to be transformed and become reproductive. You look on the first world countries, and those who are on their way to becoming that, they are investing heavily in these areas, and so we need the expertise to be able to guide our students accordingly. So that's a work in progress, and we are hoping that with the compensation review that the government has undertaken, which seeks to kind of level out the salary scales across the country, looking on teachers and putting them against private sectors based on qualifications, and bringing us up to a higher percentage of market. We are hoping that will end up being something that will encourage teachers to want to stay in the profession. Yes. In terms of achievement, I'm absolutely delighted that the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information and the government has bought into the Values and Attitudes program. The theme I had used for the conference here is promoting positive values and attitudes, and technological transformation, imperatives for redefining 21st century education. And one of the things we promoted there was just character education, because one great Indian Prime Minister said, education without good character just produces intellectual barbarians. And the truth is, Bishop, we have more and more bright people. There's no two ways about that. We have people now in second form getting 1 in mathematics, and people just getting brighter every day.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is, we still continue to sink deeper and deeper into moral decline and decadence and decay, because the character part is woefully absent and woefully missing. And so one of the things that was done throughout the presidency is just to promote, get teachers engaging, just incorporating a value. We had picked a virtue every month, since we couldn't do it on long term because there's no guarantee a successive president would continue. We circulated a lot of information. We had put up things in schools, they know what the focus for each month. When it's love, that we got short videos and conversations around that and lessons around that. And our honorable minister actually liked the idea, so a task force was set up, a high-level task force. I'm still on it, and it should be rolled out anytime now. So character education will officially be part of the school's curriculum beginning this school year going forward. So it means that it will have the support of the government. It will be one of the subjects taught in school with all the necessary assessment tools and implementation strategies to make it work. I believe it's something that we have to deal with if we are going to make a serious change, positive change in our society.
That's a big achievement. That's a big achievement, and especially
glory.
Yes, we praise God, and I appreciate your consistency. You certainly, as you lead and as the Lord elevates you, you have not abandoned your faith, and you find ways to share faith and to allow it to become a part of the fabric of those that you lead, especially those institutions. I commend you for that. That's what
I give God the glory.
Yes.
It was a great challenge in JTA. The truth is, I cannot say that JTA is necessarily a Christian organization. You have a lot of Christians in there. But I had to be firm and resilient and strong, because the culture there is not necessarily something that supports like character education and values thing. People say, but what we want to talk about are money and people will lose job and need the
it's a trade union.
It's a trade union.
Yes.
And I remember even having a prayer vigil for they say it's the first thing next time they sort me out my head office and some people really cut against it and say we don't want them to kind of thing. But God always provided resources and people to support the mission, and at the end of the day, you see the impact, and even others can say, boy, yeah, it was worth it after all. After all.
It's worth it after all, because let me say, what is faith if you're afraid to take it in the public square, and you you certainly have taken it in the public square. Just what I want to ask you to comment on what I refer to as some touch button issues that we are very current. We continue to wrestle with as a country. That's your brief comments on some of them, all in the field of education. One is the Jamaica Teaching Council and the proposed licensing of teachers, where I'm hearing that if teachers are not licensed, they could actually be fined or have jail time. You could comment on that.
Yeah, that you need to give me about an hour for that. But I understand we short on time. But the truth is, the teaching council bill has always, from way back, because it didn't just start now, it has always generated a lot of controversy. Many years ago, JTA marched against it. That was probably about 12 years ago.
Wow.
And so it kind of put on the back burner and then, it resurfaced sort of thing. I think the general idea in terms of professionalizing the teaching profession and having a body to kind of supervise that is a good idea. Except that many of us are kind of curious as to why the teaching service is targeted this way, when it's not really the biggest issue that we have in education right now. And the truth is, when you look on other professions, the nurses, the doctors, the lawyers, they don't have any body that governing body in terms of supervising their activities. In fact, the Jamaica Teaching Council already exists, and in our estimation, has been doing a very good job. You have education inspectorates and so on that come around and do the assessment of schools. I think licensing and registration of teachers, though, is a good idea. Everybody ought to be registered officially as part of a profession. But in my estimation, I think the bill is far-reaching, and it almost seems as if it's an intent, to criminalize some teachers and to target the teaching profession. When you look, for example, at one of the things you mentioned in terms of the fine, if you are not licensed or registered, that's kind of laughable, because this is the 21st century. If it is the governing bodies registering teachers, they already send out the documents, people are registering and they'll get their license. It should be easy to send out on a system to everybody to punch in on their system, Jasford, Gabriel, or Roy notice, and it tells whether the person is registered or not.
Yes.
So I don't know how you'd arrive at a place where people are practicing without a license or being registered in a system that you already govern and have all the data on and have jurisdiction over. And so when you look at, and then the committee that was assembled to put together the bill, the Jamaica Teachers Association did not have a representative on it. You're talking about the most powerful trade union.
Yeah, I'm struggling to believe that. I'm struggling to believe that you're excluded.
Yeah, and so from our end, it seemed targeted in terms of trying to really put pressure on teachers and to criminalize teachers. I'm the first to admit that we do have teachers across the system, that in terms of their professional attributes and performance, that those need to be looked at in a serious way. But systems are in place and systems are improving to make sure boards have jurisdiction over that, and they are supported by the ministry in terms of holding teachers accountable and so on. And so to me, it's not a big issue. Yes, licensing and registration, but it's far-reaching in terms of some of the implications of this. And when you drill down further into the bill in terms of how it is going to be governed and monitored, and the excessive pressure that it will be putting on teachers in the profession at a time when, like I've said already, teachers are getting a lot disenchanted with the profession because, of the comparative analysis that they are doing across the world.
Well, I know that you still sit around the leadership table at the JTA, so we will not hear the end of this. I'm sure other comments will be made about it.
In fact, the president is to make his submission, because the JTA has not spoken yet. He's to make his submission within a few days.
Okay.
In relation to the JTC.
Well, we will look out for that. Two other matters quickly. Why are you all concerned about how I wear my hair? the matter of grooming in school. It has become such a big topical issue these days. I mean, students being excluded. You saw some students at the KC gate recently. There was the Dunn Robin case that the media made a big thing out of. Your comments on that?
Yeah, but that, Bishop, to me, that's a simple thing. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information has the responsibility to set the broad parameters within which schools are to operate, but we have to be practical and reasonable. You also appoint boards that you have given full autonomy and jurisdiction to set the rules at the school. Everybody's context is very different, so what works at KC might not be the best thing for me at Manchester. What is sure is that over time, we would have seen what works in our context in terms of proper grooming and so on, and the standards that are to be maintained. Further, when I pull the data, I can pull up data to show you how close the correlation is between indiscipline, poor academic performance, and how even people present themselves. The time when they come to school, the things they wear, the attitudes, our head girls, our head boys, the people who become prefects, the people who do well in these subjects. You look at how they put themselves together, how they carry themselves. And so I am not saying that we need to make this front and center in terms of the main issue that in the education system, but there must be standards. And that's what school is all about. School is all about preparing persons for the world of work. The very way you present yourself at an interview these days, help to determine the extent to which you would be considered. A young man, I shared it in devotion the other day, told me that, boy, now him understand why we used to just pressure them so he come at school early, because he turned up the third time he turned up late for a little job he got at Bank House in Mandeville. The manager just tell him, don't come back.
It's over, go home.
It's done, over. And so he was able to kind of share his experience. And so it's important that we have standards, that we insist on standards, but that we also be considerate and flexible.
Fair.
And so I cannot prescribe a one-size-fits-all across the system. I believe our administrators, along with the boards and the board of management, they are their student representative on it. Boards, as you know, Bishop, you have student rep, you have parent rep, you have teacher rep, you have ancillary admin. So it's broad-based. And so the decisions that come out of that ought to be respected, because the constituent bodies would have given their submission on it. You can't sign to say you accept, and then you're going to go to the media and everybody to say, boy, I want my boy to wear tight-fitted pants because, it's the in thing kind of thing and so on. Thankfully, I find that if once you're consistent enough and you communicate often enough with your stakeholders and get buy-in from them, you find that you get conformity without any real big issue. And so it calls for strong leadership. First, to be decisive in terms of what is to be accepted within the parameters that we operate, and then insisting on it, so that persons don't just believe that they can basically do their own thing. Like I said before, the records show the people who are failing are the persons who are indisciplined in these regards. And they are the ones that end up not getting jobs, not qualifying for the universities, becoming problems in the society thereafter.
That's an important correlation there that more teachers and educators perhaps need to talk about more, because there are others who are promoting a kind of free-for-all, laissez-faire kind of approach to education and don't realize the connection. And it is dangerous. The last issue, Jasford, and I'm going to ask you to comment briefly on it, because I know we can spend a long time on it. It's the emphasis that the government has spoken about making sixth forms mandatory. And our schools ready for this? Do you have the facilities, the personnel? Your brief comment on it.
Bishop, Minister, and I speak very well. I said to Honorable Minister, with due respect, the idea is good, but the timing is poor. It makes no sense right now.
Well,
the system would have to be prepared over a period of time for this.
Of course,
this is a huge, major transition. Pick any school. At Manchester, for example, we graduate 300 plus students from fifth form. The maximum we can accept for sixth form is 140. So you're already talking about 200 and odd students who we are not able to receive. And then you have a number of other schools around that don't even have a sixth form program, and they don't have additional space either beyond what they have at grade 11. And it gets even worse. They are saying wherever the students end up now, the school that the student would have left from is still to monitor the students and to check to make sure that they are attending and doing what they are
Wow.
supposed to do.
Wow.
Other thing. We don't have the space to accommodate the students. We don't have the kind of resources that is necessary for that right now. So the planning is way off. I understand what the minister and team is trying to do in terms of creating opportunities for everyone up to age, say 19 or 20.
Right.
But this is something that you have to get the communication right. You have to get buy-in. When you tell some parents that they're not going to have grade 11 graduation, they're gone crazy. Some of them went to the news on the news already.
Yes.
For some of these parents, graduation is everything to them. You know, it has a long history and tradition to it. And so you don't just change those things. You can't say to a youngster that got scholarship to go overseas because he's good at what he does, that no, you have to be retained to finish up to grade 13 or whatever it is. You know, and so the truth is, I just think the idea in terms of getting people engaged is good, but it needed a lot more preparation, discussion, sensitization, you know, so that it could get by. And so, you know, I think it's just one of those things that not going to work. One of the other things that just not going to work.
Well, let me ask you: is the government and the poor brokers, are they listening though? Do they listen to you, the educators? I don't
know. Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Many times when pressure is brought to bear, then change takes place, because you would realize, like the JTA, it has a powerful voice, and once it takes a position, sometimes it would be foolhardy of the government and the powers that be not to
go up against, yes,
relent, you know, or to facilitate discussion and so on. But this is one thing that they seem adamant to push to go fully straight ahead with. And the truth is, when these things don't start properly by having the necessary consultation and dialogue, then, you know, I can point to many programs that started that way and they would have failed. So right now, even though you have the pathways, you still have the students in the communities not going to school. What are you going to do about it? They not come back. Yeah, they're in the communities kicking ball, doing all sorts of things. They're not attached to nowhere. How are you we're gonna do? Send police to get them? All because you have to get buy-in. You have to get the young people to understand what you're trying to do. You have to get the parents to understand.
Families, of course.
Yeah, and many families, they can't wait for a boy, especially who give trouble, to finish grade 11. Because done with them.
Right.
No, you're saying to them, you have to go find money again to give them transportation and lunch. Ministry said they'll get some support with school fees, but it's a huge obligation just the same. And so it's something that you have to discuss extensively, communicate properly, and get buy-in from the necessary stakeholders.
Well, I really hope the right people are listening even as we go through this conversation. Jasford, as we seek to wrap up, I know your family is important to you on this journey called life. I'm going to close off by you just telling us, you know, how important is your family, and what word would you have to other leaders about, you know, the family and how they treat family?
Awesome. I said, you know, if the family doesn't go with me, I will not go.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, that have scriptural basis.
Yes.
You know, I remember when you had asked me about career earlier. I remember when I left Bethlehem Teachers College, I taught at Clarendon College for about 4 years. That's where I met Sharon.
Yeah.
And then I went to university to study. When I went to UA, I studied economics and management because I was sort of thinking, I like math, I like figures, right. You know. So I thought of going into the business field, though I got study leave from Clarendon College. But then Sharon was still in Mandeville, and I wanted to be close to her.
Of course.
Opening came up at Manchester, so I headed back down this side, and I guess the rest is history. It was a challenge before we had our first child. Another conversation at the well, I'll tell you about that testimony.
Yes.
After 7 years, Shara came along, and then, you know, she lost a child in between, and then Amanda came along. Yes. You know, and I guess by virtue of some of the struggles though, and the challenges that we had, it has caused the family, you know, to kind of be a little closer, you know, and can appreciate each other better. we do have our challenges like everybody
Of
else.
course.
But I remember when presidency time came, though I was encouraged and pressured to enter the race, I said, boy, if Sharon and Amanda say no, I will not. And they gave me their blessings, and they were on the tour with me. They attended some of the consultation and campaigning kind of thing. And family is so essential, not just to us as individuals, but just right across the society. When we have the struggles at church or school or wherever, home is to be a place of solace.
The
You know,
haven,
you
yes.
have peace of mind. You can unload and reason together and so on. And so I believe that I've said it before. The biggest problem we face in the society right now is not crime and violence. I guess almost 100% of persons would say it's crime and violence.
Mhm.
To me, clearly the biggest problem is the breakdown in family life and the
Yes.
breakdown in family structure. The way God designed families to be together. You look at even performance of students at school, the students who come from stable societies, both in terms of academics, conduct,
Mhm.
everything, far superior.
Mm.
Why I say it's crime and violence, Bishop, is that even if we were to get rid of all those who are creating problems in the society today, within a short time, we generate another set because
Yeah.
the family structure is broken. It's been torn apart. Family, mother one side, father one side, children bouncing around. It's not God's ideal. And
Mm.
so, I think there needs to be, and that's why we're pushing values to kind
Yes.
of thing
Yeah.
as part of where we need to go. But family is extremely essential. And I'm putting in a plug right here, for us to spend some time. I still have some work to do. That's a never ending process. But we have to spend some time to make families a priority and to build a solid foundation there as a nation.
Indeed, well said. And if this was a greetings program, we would say greetings to Sharon and to Shara and to Mandy,
Thank
because
you.
they certainly have added a flavor and color to your life, and
Of
wonderful
course.
wonderful young ladies. I thank God for them and the way you're leading your family. Just for end this with just sharing a Bible verse that means much to you.
It has not changed from ever since. It's Galatians 2 and verse 20.
Yes.
I am crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live. Yet not I that live, but Christ that lives within me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live through faith in the Son of Man who loved me and gave himself for me. It's always a source of constant inspiration and strength for me because, I am crucified, nevertheless I live, but it's really Christ that is living through me. So despite the faults and failures and challenges, I know we are overcomers and we are victorious.
Amen. And certainly we have seen the light of Christ shining on you and shining through you. You are an example to the believers. I thank God for you and thank you for joining us. I did promise that the waters would flow at the well, and certainly it flowed. It was a joy talking to you, and thank you so much for listening to us. Please join us again next month as we do another series, in another episode in our series, Conversations at the Well. Today's special guest was Jasford Gabriel, the principal of the Home of Champions. Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you too, Bishop. Bless you.